This claimed false prophecy comes from the writings of David Whitmer, one of the Book of Mormon witnesses. He wrote a small book in 1887 called, An Address to All Believers in Christ. At this time, the church was low on funds to finish the printing of the Book of Mormon. On pages 30 and 31, David Whitmer gives an account that has been controversial for many years. In the text that you see, David claims Joseph Smith received a revelation to send some of the brethren to Toronto, Canada to sell the copyright of the Book of Mormon to raise funds. David writes, Hiram Page and Oliver Cowdery went to Toronto on this mission, but they failed entirely to sell the copyright, returning without any money. Joseph was at my father's house when they returned. I was there also, and am an eyewitness to these facts. Jacob Whitmer and John Whitmer were also present when Hiram Page and Oliver Cowdery returned from Canada. Well, we were all in great trouble, and we asked Joseph how it was that he had received a revelation from the Lord for some brethren to go to Toronto and sell the copyright, and the brethren had utterly failed in their undertaking. Joseph did not know how it was, so he inquired of the Lord about it, and behold, the following revelation came through the stone: some revelations are of God, some revelations are of men, and some revelations are of the devil. So we see that the revelation to go to Toronto and sell the copyright was not of God, but was of the devil or of the heart of man. When a man inquires of the Lord concerning a matter, if he is deceived by his own carnal desires, and is in error, he will receive an answer according to his erring heart, but it will not be a revelation from the Lord. This was a lesson for our benefit, and we should have profited by it in future more than we did. Did this really happen as David Whitmer writes? If it is correct, why did not anyone else also give an account validate it? David did not go on this trip to Canada. Any information he go would at best be hearsay. It is true that David Whitmer was a Book of Mormon witness and he never spoke against his testimony regarding that specific issue. David did leave the church and became bitter against Joseph Smith at this point in his life. He had reasons to misrepresent facts against Joseph Smith. Thankfully, a 1848 letter from Hiram Page written 39 years earlier than the Whitmer account has come to light. Given to William McClellan and not known to exist until a number of his property was given to the RLDS Church in the 1930s. The contents became known more generally over the last 20 years. In this account, conditions are given to those going to Canada. It says, They shall do it with an eye single to my glory, that it may be the means of bringing souls unto me salvation through mine only begotten. The group must be righteous and go with the purpose of bringing souls to Christ. It also says for the purchase of the copyright to occur, the potential buyers must have an open mind and heart, where it says, If the people harden not their hearts against the enticings of my spirit and my word. No promise is made that the success would happen. Success was based on the righteousness of the group going and the openness to the message of potential buyers. Without that, failure was certainly possible. The letter gives a full list of who went to Canada. Hiram Page says Oliver Cowdery, Joseph Knight, Hiram Page and Josiah Stowell went to Canada. David Whitmer admits Joseph Knight and Josiah Stowell. Given the fact that David Whitmer was not a witness to the events in Canada while Hiram Page was, Hiram Page account as the more authoritative source. David makes an error by asserting the mission was to Toronto, but it was actually to Kingston. Hiram Page would know better than David where the party went. Finally, David claims the mission was an utter failure and Joseph Smith later got a revelation, and that everyone including apparently Hiram Page were troubled by this failure. Joseph Smith then gets some revelation for the reason for the failure of. Some revelations are of God, some revelations are of men, and some revelations are of the devil. None of this is found in the Hiram Page account. Why not? Perhaps much of what David says is fabrication. Hiram Page makes no reference to Joseph Smith saying, some revelations are of God, some revelations are of men, and some revelations are of the devil, because that never happened. David Whitmer felt confident to give a false version of the events since the witnesses had died, thus not present to correct his account. It is more likely Hiram Page viewed the failure based on conditions of the revelation not being met. If the people in Canada did harden their hearts against the enticings of spirit, Page would have seen that as evidence for the failure and moved on with his life. He would have seen no need to ask Joseph Smith why the mission failed, as he knew the reasons why the mission failed based on the initial revelation or instruction. The mission to Canada to sell the copyright was a failure, but not in the way David described it. He was a bitter man at that point in his life and had reason to alter what really happened decades after it occurred. Thank you for your time.